Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is good to be with you. My watch just told me that it feels like it's 107 degrees outside, so it is good to be with you in here. And I hope if you're watching online, wherever you are, it's not 107 degrees. It is good to be together with joys to share, with burdens to unload, to celebrate and welcome Shabbat together. And we are going to continue our Shabbat service. Now is a good time to remember to turn off cell phones, pagers, things that ring, jingle, and buzz. And we are going to invite up Kathy Borden and her mother, Shirley Burkham, and her daughters, Caitlin Mayers and Sarah Cronman, to lead us in the lighting of candles, which can be found on pages 3 and 2 in the memory of Bradley Borden. It's not every week we get 4 generations to come light candles. We're not going to trust the 7-week-old with the matches. Okay.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us.
You're going to have to hold it for me. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
We are going to continue with the words of Shir Chadash, a new song. It may not be new to you, but the point of Shabbat is to try and find some new melody in our hearts. So the words will appear shortly on the screen. We hope you'll join us. We continue with the words of Lechado D, which begin on page 20. We are going to sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. When we get to that 9th verse, we'll rise in body or spirit. We'll turn to face the back entrance and welcome Shabbat as it enters like a bride. Page 20. Since we've greeted Shabbat and since you're already standing, let's take a moment and greet each other. Turn to the people around you, wish them Shabbat Shalom. If you don't know them, introduce yourselves. Thanks for getting the memo on the white beverage container. That's important.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Must be coordinated.
We continue with Baruch Hu on page 28. This week marks 1 year since the launch of the James Webb Space Telescope. And in response to that anniversary, NASA released a new image from the telescope, which will appear there shortly, maybe. But I'll tell you about it while it's coming up. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson said, in just 1 year, the James Webb Space Telescope has transformed humanity's view of the cosmos, peering into dust clouds and seeing light from faraway corners of the universe for the very first time. Every new image is a new discovery, empowering scientists around the globe to ask and answer questions they once could never dream of. Now, I don't know about you, but I have no idea what I'm looking at here. So let me tell you, this is called the Rho Ophiuchi Cloud Complex. It's the closest star-forming region to Earth, which makes it about 390 light years away. I'm told it's a relatively small, quiet, stellar nursery, but you'd never know it from Webb's chaotic close-up. They described it this way: jets bursting from young stars crisscross the image, impacting the surrounding interstellar gas and lighting up molecular hydrogen shown in red. Some stars display the telltale shadow of a circumstellar disk, the making of future planetary systems. Something about seeing images like this as they come in from the James Webb fills me with a sense of awe and wonder that takes me out of the doldrums of the everyday. And so I thought, as our Ma'ariv Aravim this evening, our prayer for nature, I might share with you a poem called Primary Wonder by Denise Levertov. Days pass when I forget the mystery. Problems insoluble and problems offering their own ignored solutions jostle for my attention. They crowd its antechamber, along with a host of diversions, my courtiers waiting, their colored clothes, cap and bells. And then, once more, the quiet mystery is present to me. The throng's clamor recedes. The mystery that there is anything at all, let alone cosmos. Joy, memory, everything rather than void, and that, O Lord, Creator, hallowed one, you still, hour by hour, sustain it. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. Ahavat Olam, page 32.
Ahavat Olam. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Avad.
Please be seated. We continue with Ve'ahavta, page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, ושרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
On page 39, in the middle of the page, we pray responsively. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way.
Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces.
Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed.
Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea.
We continue with that song of rejoice for freedom on page 40, Micha Mocha. On page 42 is Hashkivenu, our prayer for God's protective presence in the night. in this season, as the days are almost as long as they can possibly be, it makes you appreciate the darkness a little bit more because it gets like 2 degrees cooler. I grew up in Colorado where it gets cool at night, so it's still a mystery to me that like you don't need to bring a jacket when you go out in the afternoon. But night can be a welcome respite. It can also be a little scary. The darkness is the unknown. And so the words of Hashkivenu are here to offer us hope and comfort in the darkness.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, lehamidenu shomreinu, lechaim, lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, lehamidenu shomreinu, lechaim, lechaim. Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, Ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, lehamidenu shomreinu, lechaim, lechaim. May you shelter us in peace until the morning comes. May you lay us down with love, and may you raise us up. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, lehamidenu shomreinu, lechaim, lechaim.
We continue now with the Amidah, which begins on page 46. We rise in body or in spirit.
Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah. Ha'el hagadol hagibor v'hanora, El Elyon, gomel chasadim tovim, v'konei hakol, v'zocher chastei avot v'imahot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל. מחכה חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, umido melach, melech memit umechayem, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman ata lehachayot hakol, baruch ata Adonai, mechayeh hakol. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, uv'kdoshim b'chol yom yehallelu Selah. Baruch ata Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Please be seated. We pray together in the middle of page 57. You are with us in our prayer, our love, and our doubt, in our longing to feel your presence and do your will. You are the still, clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance. Let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai she'otecha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. We continue with a prayer for peace, Shalom Rav, page 60.
Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon, lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech Adon, lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
Take a moment now for silent prayer and gratitude. We turn our prayers now to those in our lives and our community who are in need of healing and wholeness and strength with the words of Mishaberach on page 253. We hold prayerful space for those whose pains and illnesses we see and know, and those whose pain and illness we may never see or never know. We think of those who struggle with chronic illness and chronic pain, those who struggle with addiction and those who are in recovery. We send our prayers also to the caregivers who offer strength and support and hope every day. We're thinking tonight of Christy Barr and Charlotte Berkowitz, Melba Berman, Eileen Siersansky, Robert Cohn, Barbara Fenton, Carol Friedman, Marcine S. Goldman, Chuck Green, Barbara Halfant, Roxanne Harrison, Joyce Halfrecht, Terry Hazelwood, Robin Hodgkins, Christina Howard, Sarah James, Susan Johnson, Simon Kim, Lawrence Levy, Betsy Lewis, Samuel Lewis, Karen Mendonça, Amanda Musselwhite, Dahlia Natan, Terry Newman, Mark Nodler, Magdalene Pessin, Hattie Reese, Alan Reingold, Neil Reisman, Sidney Rogan, Bernard Rosenfeld, Anne Rounsfeld, Esther Rozga, Carol Rubenstein, Beth Kuntz-Sabin, A.J. Saper, Keith Silverblatt, Edward Simmons, Leslie Simmons, Lori Smith, Inez Taylor, Lenny Weinberger, Brandon Weinreb, Roberta Weiss, Yvonne Zients, Ariella Sharon Bat Yafa Shoshana, Gelka Nechama Bat Lebechaya, Noach ben Binyamin, Shena Yosefet, Shimshon ben Fagel, Yehoshua Matityahu ben Yaakov Prevachana, and Yosefa Zezel bat Herschel Zelig, and all who are suffering with afflictions of body, mind, and spirit, we offer these words.
Mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say
Few brief announcements for this Shabbat. On Tuesday, July 18th, we hope that you, Sisterhood invites you to enjoy a light dinner and wine, and then for $7 play Mahjong. That is from 5:30 to 8 p.m. We ask that you register online or by contacting the Sisterhood office. Also, the next two Shabbats, we have exciting things happening here. We have exciting things happening every Shabbat. Let me tell you about these two. Next week is our next community Shabbat dinner. Come to services, enjoy a feeling of connection and community, and then join us for a lovely community dinner where you can connect with longtime friends, make new friends. Dinner will be provided by our caterer, Houston Catering Concepts. Registration is open online now through Wednesday, July 19th. And 2 weeks from tonight, Friday, July 28th, in addition to our regular Kabbalat Shabbat services in this room at 6 p.m., you are invited to attend our, I have to read it because it says it here, Renowned Warehouse Shabbat Experience at 8 p.m. Our alternative Shabbat experience. It will be in the multi-purpose room. It's here at Temple. Sometimes it's off-site. This time it's here. You can enjoy beverages and dessert. This time the dessert, very good on a 107-degree day, is fancy grown-up popsicles, included, I'm told, a adult popsicles. So come check that out with our lively, dynamic, adults-only Shabbat experience here at Temple in the Ashman Multipurpose Room. We hope you'll join us for that. Registration is also online for that. Gives us a sense of how many popsicles we need. You don't get to say that about services very often. I thought I would tell a story this evening, a Shabbat story. And this story comes from the Jewish community of Yemen. The Yemenite Jewish community used to number almost 50,000 people. And now, because of anti-Semitism and as people have made aliyah to Israel and people have been rescued to Israel and people have emigrated away from Yemen, the Jewish community, I'm told, at last count was less than 10. But this, I think it's one family. But this story comes from a time when Jewish life in Yemen was thriving, and the Yemenite Jews lived amongst their Muslim neighbors, rarely without some tension. And this is a story about a jeweler who had a little shop in a marketplace, a little stall, where he would make and repair jewelry. And this jeweler loved two things in his life. He loved his family, and he loved Shabbat. This jeweler, I know you all like Shabbat, but this jeweler loved Shabbat. He talked about Shabbat all the time. He spent his whole week planning his Shabbat meal. And whenever anybody would bring him some piece of jewelry to repair, no matter what day of the week it was, when they would say, "Can you repair this?" he would say, "Yes, I will repair it for the merit of the Sabbath." Every time he would say, "I will do this work for the merit of the Sabbath," so much so that they started to call him Merit of the Sabbath. Most people didn't know his name. They just called him Merit of the Sabbath. And he was a joyful and friendly guy. And he would talk to all of the customers who were walking through the marketplace, and he would talk to all of the proprietors of all the different stalls around his. And he had a lot of joy because the thought of Shabbat lit him up the whole week long. And he talked to everybody, except his next door neighbor's stall, which was a leather worker who was not full of joy. And he was annoyed with the bubbliness, the effervescence of the merit of Shabbat, merit of the Sabbath. It drove him crazy. And as the days and weeks and months went on of listening to everybody walk by and say, "Hey, merit of the Sabbath, how you doing?" and him talking to everybody, the leather worker is just getting more and more annoyed and furious at this Jewish guy in the stall next door that he cannot stand, and he starts to concoct a plan. And he has a plan for how he's going to take that store owner, that jeweler, down a peg. And so one day, on a Wednesday, he comes into his neighbor's stall, into the jewelry shop, and he says, "I have a ring. It's a family ring that's broken, and I'd like to know if you can repair it." And Merit of the Sabbath says, "I'd love to take a look." And so the leather worker takes this ring out of his pocket. He places it in the Merit of the Sabbath's hands. The Merit of the Sabbath looks at it. It's a gorgeous ring. It has this beautiful, fine gold filigree, very delicate in places. It has this beautiful diamond stone surrounded by gold. It's quite beautiful. And in one of the places where it is most delicate, it was broken. The Merit of the Sabbath can tell that it seems to have been broken somewhat recently, but he doesn't bring that up. The leather worker says, "So can you fix it?" And the Merit of Sabbath says, "I can fix it by the merit of the Sabbath." And the leather worker says, "Well, I want you to take very good care of this. This is a priceless family heirloom. It is very important to me, and were anything to happen to it, I would be quite angry." And the merit of the Sabbath says, absolutely, I always take care of the things that are entrusted to me. And he says, look, I'm going to put it safely here. He opens the drawer of his workbench, and he places it in the top drawer of his workbench, closes the door. And then he goes back to working on some ruby necklace that was a front of this in line, and he's working on that all day. And the leather worker leaves without even saying goodbye. Midday, after working on this ruby necklace all day, the merit of the Sabbath is hungry. So he leaves his stall for a few minutes to go and find food in the marketplace. This is the moment that the leather worker has been waiting for. The leather worker leaves his own shop. He sneaks into the merit of the Sabbath shop. He knows exactly where the ring is. He opens up the drawer. He removes the ring. He puts it back in his pocket, and he closes the drawer, and he goes back to his shop. The merit of the Sabbath comes back to his shop, continues to work on the necklace all day. End of the day, closes up the shop and to go home. The leather worker is so proud of this trick that he has played on the Jew, this thing that he has set up for him, that he is sort of skipping home. And as he's skipping home, just to sort of to finally win against his Jewish neighbor, he chucks the ring into the gulf. The next day, the merit of the Sabbath is in his shop working on the jewelry. The leather worker comes in and he says, "So, is my ring done?" And the merit of the Sabbath says, "I'm really sorry, I haven't gotten to it yet. I haven't worked on it. In fact, I haven't touched it." And the leather worker says, "Okay, well, I would really love to have it for the weekend so I can wear it out over the weekend. If you can please have it by tomorrow." And the merit of the Sabbath says, "Absolutely." Leather worker goes back to his stall. And a little while later, the merit of the Sabbath opens the drawer to go work on the ring and, of course, discovers no ring. The merit of the Sabbath is worried. He searches through the whole drawer. He opens up every drawer on his desk. He looks all around. He cannot find it in the shop. He's terrified. He knows how important this is to his neighbor. He knows he's made a promise to him. And then he starts to remember, I was wearing a different coat yesterday, and I suppose it's possible I put it in the pocket of my coat for safekeeping. I'll have to look when I get home. So Thursday night, the merit of the Sabbath closes up the shop. He goes home. He searches the coat. Of course, no ring. He is terrified. He doesn't know what is going to happen to him. He says to his children, "It must be in the shop somewhere. I know it's there. You'll come with me tomorrow morning. We'll turn the shop upside down. We'll open up every drawer. We'll move all the furniture. We will find this ring for my neighbor." So the next morning, the merit of the Sabbath and all of his children go to the shop. They get there early. They're searching, turning the shop upside down all day. They cannot find it. The leather worker comes back into the shop. He said, "Are you finished with my ring?" The merit of the Sabbath says, "I haven't begun working on your ring. In fact, I haven't touched it still," which is technically true. And the leather worker says, "Well, I'm quite disappointed. I wanted it for the weekend. I expect it on Sunday morning. And if anything has happened to my ring, or if I don't get it back on Sunday morning, I am going to be quite angry, and you are going to be in a fair amount of trouble." The merit of the Sabbath is beside himself. He doesn't know what to do. He is terrified. He doesn't want to let his neighbor down, and frankly, he's a bit scared of his neighbor. But the merit of the Sabbath doesn't want to let this get in the way of Shabbat. It's Friday afternoon. He closes up his Shabbat early, as he does every week. His children are there, and he says to his children, "By the merit of the Sabbath, something will happen. I don't know what it is, but I want to have a beautiful and wonderful Shabbat. Heck, this might be my last Shabbat. I'd like it to be beautiful and wonderful." So he says to his children, "We have lots to do to get ready for Shabbat," and he sends them to run errands in the marketplace. He sends one child to go get vegetables from the vegetable stall. He sends one child to go get a beautiful fish from the fishmonger. He sends one child to go get flowers for mom, and they are all to compile all these things, and they all go home together with the fish and the vegetables and the flour and everything they need for a beautiful Shabbat. They come home. and his wife has been preparing a challah. It smells so wonderful in the house. They're getting ready for Shabbat. They put the flowers on the table. She starts to prepare all the vegetables, and he is in charge of preparing the fish. They make a beautiful meal. They have a joyful weekend. Sunday morning, the leather worker comes into the shop. The merit of the Sabbath has beaten him to the shop. And he says, all right, this is it once and for all. I'm here for my ring. Merit of the Sabbath turns around and he says, and here it is. And he hands it to the leather worker. And the leather worker looks at it. It is definitely his ring with all the gold filigree. And he is furious. He says, how is this possible? How do you have this? And the merit of the Sabbath says, because you gave it to me. And he says, I happen to know for a fact that it was stolen. And the merit of the Sabbath says, stolen? What do you mean stolen? And then the leather worker knows that he's been caught. And he says, I overheard someone in the tavern saying that they had robbed you. And I figured that it must have been my ring. And the merit of the Sabbath says, I don't know what to tell you. This is your ring. I can't imagine who might have broken in here wanting to steal it. And at this point, the leather worker just sort of collapses. He says, I'm not even mad anymore. You have to tell me everything that happened since last I saw you. And the merit of the Sabbath says it's quite simple. We bought a fish, took that fish home. I was slicing into that fish and I hit something hard. I opened up the fish and I found your ring. And some fish had found it in the water. And by the merit of the Sabbath, I was able to stay up all night after Havdalah, after Shabbat was over, fixing your ring so that it's good as new. And the anger of the leather worker melted away. And he was no longer mad at his neighbor. In fact, he no longer hated his neighbor. He understood finally what he meant with these words that he said over and over and over again by the merit of the Sabbath. And in fact, they became friends. And they would talk each and every week. And every week, as the shopkeeper was closing up his shop on Friday afternoon, the leather worker would say, have a wonderful Shabbat. And on the very best Shabbats, not every week, but from time to time, the leather worker would come and enjoy a Shabbat meal with his friend, the merit of the Sabbath. So my blessing for you on this Shabbat is that everything you're looking for, you find on this Sabbath. And my blessing for you on this Shabbat is that you merit much Shabbat joy, much Shabbat hope, and much Shabbat peace. Shabbat shalom. We continue on page 282 with the words of Aleinu L'Shabeach, and invite you please to rise in body or in spirit. Aleinu L'Shabeach L'Adon HaKol L'Ateitz Gedula L'Yotzer Bereshit Shelo Asanu Kigoyei Ha'aratzot Velo Samanu Kemishpechot Ha'adama Shelo Sam Chalkeinu Kahem Vegor Aleinu Kechol Hamonam V'anachnu Korim Umishtachavim Umodim Lifnei Melech Malchei HaMelechim Kadosh Baruch Hu.
Page 287.
V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz hayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, life and death. We take a moment for silent memory. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own Zichronam Livracha. May their memories be for a blessing. Our hearts go out in sympathy to the families of Stacy Farb and Dr. Daniel Rose, who were laid to rest in recent days. We also recall the yard sites, the anniversaries of the deaths of Harry Allen, Bella Arendt, Stuart H. Babinger, Sue Baird, Edward Sonny Becker, Lenore Berman, B. Berman, Bradley Borden, Mitchell Irwin Breyer, David George Brooks, Frank Brown, Robert S. Bruno, John Brush, Dory Bull, Anna Kaplan, Jules Cass, Elizabeth S. Clark, Shirley Cohen, Bonnie Cohen, Harry Kursch, Gladys Davidson, Abe M. Davis, Sonia DeWitowicz, Rabbi A. Stanley Dreyfus, Sybil Oshman Dushkin, Helen Falek, Rachel Fetterman, Bernice Feld, Michael Lawrence Fink, Jack Fink, Rose Fishbein, Helen Oberfram, Lillian Frank, Maurice Garber, Rose Price Gary, Leah Goldreck, Melvin Goodman, David Gordon, Miriam Graubart, Hester Green, Michael Green, Irving Isidore Green, Mame King Harris, Frederick Hodgkins, Harry Holzberg, Henry Jacob Horowitz, Roy Howard, Fanny Hussman, Gertrude Ingram, Dorothy Inselberg, Harold Joseph, David Kapeloff, Julia S. Kaplan, Rose Kemeny, Sally Kesselman, Perry B. Klein, Cami Knoller, Mose Nathan Krafchek, Abe Lavis, James Lempert, Tilly Lenser, Marlon Lewis, Yvonne Little, Charlotte Shaler Lynch, Peter Milch, Esther Moskowitz, Saul Norman, Lillian Pasternak, Alois Karchmer Pepper, Sarah Rabinow Pesikoff, Shella Prizant Plasterick, Antoinette Price, Nina Regenstreif, Perla Roth, Harold S. Sachs, Morris Joseph Samuels, Ada Shear, Ruth Schnitzer, Helen Schwartz, Edith Shep, Carl Solomon, Beverly Ruth Kaplan Spear, Marilyn Spielman, Jack Stein, Nanette Steinhardt, Francisca Stern, Solomon Still, Louis Stoller, Fanny Stuhl, Ellis Teisch, Rochelle Wachowski, Barry Weinbaum, Tina Weiss, Sarah Wexler, Frank Yellen, Marilyn Zimmerman, and Abe Zinn. We turn to page 294 and rise together as one community for these words of solace. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, ba'alma divrach hirutei ve'al michma chutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'gala uvizman kariv ve'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam u'me'amaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitchomam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shmei dekudisha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'ne'emata damiram me'ama v'imru amen Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen Osei shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
O say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Please be seated. We continue with Kiddush and Motzi. Kiddush is found on page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu. B'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit. Ki hu yom techila lemikraye kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim. Ve'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
L'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam,
Hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen. Our closing song this evening is found on page 353, another prayer for peace in Hebrew and Arabic, fitting for the story. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, bottom of 353.
Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam, Salam Shalom. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam, Salam Shalom. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam, Salam Shalom. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam, Salam Shalom. One more time. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu, Od Yavo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam.
Please rise for the closing benediction. Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, our God and God of our ancestors, we thank you for the blessing of Shabbat. We thank you for the blessing of Shabbat joy. We thank you for the blessing of Shabbat wonder. We thank you for the blessing of Shabbat hope. We thank you for the blessing of Shabbat light. May all the things we do merit this great gift that you give us, the gift of Shabbat. And may we notice today and every day all the blessings in our lives. And we say together, Amen.
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.